Hello, and welcome to Mind Your Head, a space for people to share their stories, talk openly and honestly about their own mental health challenges, and to give some listeners some comfort in knowing you're not alone. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we record this podcast, the Gubbi Gubbi people. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Indigenous peoples. We honour their enduring connection to the land, waters and culture, and recognise their invaluable contributions they make to our communities. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Harry, welcome to Mind Your Head, mate. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on today.
Thanks for having me, mate. I'm excited.
Pumped. Before we sort of get into who you are now and I guess the heavy parts of your story, I'd like to go back and find out what sort of kid were you like growing up and what was your childhood like?
I think first things first, I was pretty lucky to have a well put together family. Not even just my brothers and my mum and dad, but even my cousins and aunties and uncles and my grandparents, all super close. So being brought up like that is honestly has affected me in ways that I wouldn't expect now that I've done all this, I guess, soul searching. So been brought up very well, loving family. Parents both own, they own two businesses. So surrounded by a lot of love. So as a young kid, it's interesting how we're going to dive deep into why I struggled so much when my childhood was
on the surface.
Good. Yeah, exactly. So,
what were some emotions? I think were you allowed to express most emotions in the household? I know from sort of my perspective growing up, my dad came from a really violent childhood where if he expressed emotions as a kid, it was sort of seen as a weakness and he was preyed upon. Yeah. So when he became a dad, without him even knowing, those unconscious sort of beliefs were sort of coming through as him as a father where he was always present, always loving. But in terms of having emotional conversations with dad as a young boy, turning into a young man, there was nothing like that growing up. Were you able to express your emotions fully as a kid? And was it accepted or did you think you have to sort of hide things?
Well, actually, speaking to my mum recently about this sort of thing, we hadn't spoken about it before. And reason being, my mentor actually told me to have a conversation with my mum about my childhood and not even just teenage years or even just before that, but like as an actual baby. She actually mentioned to me that I was very, very like attention seeking in a sense. So obviously as a baby, a lot of us are like that, but apparently I flipped a switch at about 10 months old when I realised, because my older brother's got a disability and apparently when you can sort of paint the picture in your own head that when you have an older brother who's obviously getting more attention because of his disability, I obviously picked up on that as a young kid and a young baby, and started to act out and stuff like that. So, as I got older, I almost chose not to speak out, and that's what you hear about a lot these days. But I can't think of any sort of time where my parents haven't made it seem okay for me to speak, where they haven't made it not okay, for me to speak out or tell them how I'm feeling. But yeah, my dad's a little bit different to my mum in that sense. My dad's pretty similar to what you sort of said, and he was whoopsie.
Is that yours?
Yeah, might go turn that off. Just a little pink penguin. So my dad grew up out in the country, out in the bush, hardcore dad. Just from what I've heard, I never actually met my dad's dad. But so my dad and my mum and dad are a little bit different in how they would handle that sort of situation. But I really can't pinpoint a time where I thought that I wasn't able to express how I feel. I just made the choice in the end as I got older to not.
That's interesting you said about sort of realising when you were acting out because you're sort of maybe seeking that attention that your brother maybe was getting. Was that sort of your earliest memory where you felt different or you felt not enough?
Yeah, and that's played a part into the rest of my life.
Oh, has it really?
And the past sort of, I reckon, 6 months has been where I've really started to understand why I experienced some of the stuff I did at a younger age, and even why I struggle with certain things right now. And it is as deep as your childhood. So the stuff that I've been able to learn and understand through talking and having really tough conversations with my mum has really sort of bring me a bit of peace in knowing, okay, that stuff wasn't just because I was like crazy or anything like that. It was because I genuinely had past, I'm not going to say trauma, but experiences that instilled these beliefs in my mind that this is why, and then ends up being the reason that I act out.
Yeah. It's interesting because, you know, I think about my childhood in terms of not having any trauma, but I went and listened to, I went and watched Gabor Mate. If you're not familiar with him, I'll pass him on to you. He's amazing. He's a psychologist. Sure. He does a sort of expert in child development and parenting. And we always have this picture of like trauma being this massive event that happens in your life.
Go turn that off.
Yeah, go turn it off. Yeah. Trauma, people's perception of trauma being this, you know, someone's died or you've been, you know, domestic violence or something, sort of any sort of drug abuse, alcohol abuse. But trauma can be as little as, you know, not getting that affection or attention as you were as a kid. And trauma is also not what happens to you, but how your body responds to what happens to you.
Yeah. Especially as you get older.
Oh man.
Like to realize that is so powerful.
Yeah.
I feel like so many people, especially at my age, aren't in touch with that sort of thing. So like for me to be able to, and not even me tooting my own horn here, but for me to be able to recognize that right now is, I'm not going to say it's changed my life, but it's brought me a bit of peace.
Well, if it makes you feel better.
Yeah.
I went through it at 31.
Oh, yes, so true.
Okay, so you're going through it at 21. I went through it at 31. So I look back now and go, man, I don't feel like I felt like I blocked out from like 19 years old to 30. It was just like a write-off. And then 30, I'm doing the work that you're doing now.
Yeah.
And I think, man, if I somehow, how could I have changed? What could I have changed where I could have done it at a 20-year-old or 21-year-old? Or I even think about like future, like when I have children, when I have a son or a daughter, how can I parent them in a way that they don't have to go through how can I do it so you're at 21 going through it? That's amazing. Yeah. Now you set yourself up. You know, my whole 20s was a blur. Yeah. It was a write-off.
Yeah, and people say that, like, and that's why I say I don't want to toot my own horn, because it's like I'm so glad and just speaking to people like my mentors and stuff like that, saying stuff like, mate, you're lucky, you should be grateful that you're going through this now. You're not going through it when you've got kids and a wife and a whole lot more responsibility. It just 100%. Makes it 10 times harder. So obviously I'm so grateful, but as you said, it's so cool to be able to learn and even be on this journey to figure out, okay, how can we make this not happen as best as possible for our kids in the future? So
100%. And it's interesting because you think, oh, it's good that I'm going through it now, but it doesn't minimize the pain or the hurt.
Not at all.
Does it?
Yeah. But I think one thing I've even been trying really hard consciously is to find that sort of stuff in these negative situations, or not even going to say negative situations, but these things that are bothering us, to be able to find a positive,
the silver lining.
Be able to do that. It just, and Tony Robbins actually speaks about it a lot, and I did one of his events recently, and it's really stuck with me.
Oh, did you?
And to be able to find gratitude in everything that you do, whether like it could be as silly as I don't know, you're thinking something that's not even true, but you're almost celebrating it, or you could be overthinking about a partner or something like that, and them doing something with someone else or something like that, and you're just, or an ex, whatever it is, you're just finding gratitude, and it's so, once you do it, it just brings a little bit of peace in the situation. And for me personally, being someone who can overthink a lot, it's helped me a lot recently to be able to find the gratitude, and it teaches your brain to rewire it when you're going through adversity.
Yeah, and that's something that I've similar with you, is I used to overthink. Well, I still do overthink a lot, but it's just changing your perspective of what's something that's happening to you or what's happening for you. You know, like I was at the dog park a while ago and I got pulled over by the cops, and I was like, what's going on here? And he's just like a random breatho, all good. And he's like, I just checked your license and it's expired. And I was like, what? And it was expired like 5 months ago. I forgot to pay my rego.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell? And he like, I was proper sincere. I was like, mate, I honestly, he gave me like this tiny little fine, but he's just like, go home right now and pay sort it out. I've just paid the late fees and this sort of thing. And I was sort of driving home just going, fuck, like pretty down on myself. I was like, how did I forget that? How the hell did I forget that? And then I was thinking, wait a second, like I've got the money to pay it. I'll just go home and pay it.
Yeah.
Like I'm lucky to have a job that pays me well, that I can just go home and pay it and not be an issue. Like I don't have to borrow money. I don't have to like, stinge out on food for the week. I can just go home and pay it and it's all good.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, what am I worrying about?
Yeah. It's one of those things, hey, we just instantly, our brains are connected to the worst things that happen. As soon as something bad happens, forget the good.
Yeah.
Just your brain instantly just wants to go
focus
to that.
on the bad.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's a lot of deeper meaning to that these neuroscientists would be able to understand why. It could be a chemical imbalance in the brain from what I've heard. But it's really interesting how we always just...
It's also that programming when we were like, kids growing up. It's just like that negative stuff always is louder than the positive, isn't it?
Especially
always.
what you're surrounded with as well. And the world's just evolved into sometimes a negative place where there's so much judgment and all that sort of thing, and it just leaks out into everyone's lives. So
how was that Tony Robbins event? Was it online?
So good, yeah. It was virtual. It was my second one. I did one when I was in the shit. When I was 16. I did the exact same event. So it's 4 days, 12-hour days.
Really?
And they're full on. It's hectic. Like I was up from 12 a.m. It was 12 a.m. to...
Because of the time zone and stuff, yeah.
And it was... we weren't finishing till like 1. So it was actually like 13 hours. There was...
what was the theme?
It's basically... It's called Unleash the Power Within.
Okay.
So it's a bit of everything. It's just life in general. It talks about business, relationships, relationship with yourself, and all those sorts of things. And it was real... mate, honestly, you take away 10% of it. Like there's too much for you to take on board and remember. Like if you were to ask me to recap, good luck.
Well, you're just writing it down that whole time.
There's a workbook and everything like that. I took away, you obviously take away things like the gratitude thing I took away was probably my key thing. Yeah. And I was obviously seeking, that's what I was looking for. And then obviously my brain's captured that for a reason. So that's how I take that. But it was big days, but so worth it to be able to be surrounded by, there was 60,000 people on that event. And from all over the world.
Like that's wild, eh?
Yeah, and I would love to know how much money you made from that. But,
well, he's doing well.
Clearly. But yeah, mate, it was to be able to do it in two different mindsets. Once when I was 16 and now when I'm learning the stuff I am, it was pretty cool to see how I react to certain things.
What was the comparison?
Just how I was taking everything on board and how everything was clicking. Yeah. And it's like...
it makes sense.
Like a lot of those light bulb moments in your head where it's like, okay. And then so many things made sense as to why we think the way we do, and even having more belief with the mindset I'm in now. Whereas when I was 16 and I did it, I was in this horrible place and I was just so closed off to it all. And I was like, oh yeah, righto, I've heard this before. So to be able to do it in a much more open mindset was really cool to see how it's like, okay, I can actually take action on these things. And it gave me a bit of motivation to sort of knuckle down with work and get my life back on track, as I've been having a bit of a rough time over the past 6 months, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But yeah, to be able to do that at this time of year, my time of my life was really, really cool.
Is he sort of one of your, I guess, mentors or someone that you always...
Yeah, I reckon I watch a lot of his stuff. Yeah, so I'd love to be able to meet him, but obviously...
It'd be the dream, eh?
Yeah, mate, he's such a... he's changed so many people's lives. Yeah. It's in plain sight. Like he's just... You watch his Netflix documentary...
I've watched it that many times.
Yeah, mate, I watched it whenever I feel like shit. Like I'll always put it on and just... really hits in the feels, but almost is like, okay, your life's not that bad.
Yeah, and that's what he does, man. It's like his ability to calm or simplify what's going on in your life, and then almost get you to see it how he sees it, and then it forces you to be like, yeah, I guess it's...
Because we get so caught up in ourselves, and I feel like
we magnify the issue bigger than what it actually.
Yeah, and if you can, I feel like he takes you a step outside of yourself.
He
to
does.
be able to acknowledge. Yeah. Okay, and it almost makes you feel a bit silly sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
But you need to be able to recognize what you're going through and how to move forward from it.
The one in the Netflix documentary that I really loved is when there was a mother and daughter there, and they were saying sort of her dad was never around. He was sort of into drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And you know, he was a terrible father. He was a terrible this because he wasn't there for her. But then he's like, Tony Robbins said to her, well, your daughter is so driven, outspoken. She's so like, you know, she wants to succeed in in
Yeah.
And he goes, she wouldn't be the person she is if she didn't have that father.
Yeah, literally.
You know,
and
like,
he was like, I'm pretty sure, forgive my language, like, fuck that guy for making you grow so much or something like that, for teaching you these
How
things.
dare he?
How dare he? Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah. How dare he do that? Like,
Yeah.
And then that's like what I talk about, the gratitude, where it's like, okay, he's done the most horrible things to his daughter in a sense and neglected her.
Yeah.
But look at what she can take away from it.
Yeah.
Like she can,
so strong.
the way that he can manipulate the situation like that.
And see it in a different light. And they go, you need to call your dad and say thank you.
Yeah. And then they ended up having the conversation and it was awesome apparently. So
I love that. I absolutely love that.
And he harps on about that in those events.
Yeah.
And how you can just really find, because it's as simple as if you are going through something hard, it's because the universe is putting something in your face that you need to work through in order to be able to learn to deal with this sort of stuff. Because when you go through these sorts of things, when you experience good things, they're 10 times better than they would be if you experiencing good things all day, every day.
Yeah.
It's like there was two things. There was the art of fulfillment and there was something else. And I can't remember. And it's just basically talking about how if we were to be happy all the time, we wouldn't be happy in a sense. Whereas when we go through these things and life's going up and down, the downs are really down, but when you experience those highs, that's when we feel really fulfilled because we've worked through something that was really difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
So to look at it in that light is like the really, I guess, low level reasoning that Tony would explain it. But that's pretty much, as I said to you, where I'm taking away, like look at it in a different light.
And I think that's a skill that needs training, is that when it's all good when you're in the highs, because it's so easy to enjoy the moment when you're in the highs. But I think when you're in the lows, it's very challenging, and and you need to train yourself, and you need to train your mind to be like, not get too caught up in it, acknowledge it for what it is. Yeah. And then on the other side go, all right, what's this teaching me? How can I get better? Yeah. Yeah, it fucking sucks. Yeah, I'm struggling. I don't know. I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I know it's got to be there.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's the thing.
And that's where the people outside need to come in. And did a content day a few months ago. And one of the questions the guy asked me to prompt for some content was, my videographer, he goes, what can we do? So being like the outside people, the people around you that love you, what can we do to help someone who's going through something tough or going through some mental health issues? And it's like, I've lost my train of thought. I had it right there. I fully just blanked.
Drinks break.
Yeah, drinks break. Yeah, good idea. I'll just hit. Jeez, I've really lost it, haven't I? What did you say before?
When you're in the lows, you got to train yourself to
Yeah. Oh, and how other people
community, other people get involved, and you need to. Was that on the train of thought?
Yeah, we're getting there. It was something about, it was like what other people can do. And it's like, understanding, like, first of all, how people are thinking in these moments and being like, okay, how can we prompt them to continuously start to think about the light at the end of the tunnel, and almost teaching them that habit of, okay, this is happening, and the simple cliche quote of, this is happening for me, not to me. And for them to just give that to them and feed it gently is what can help people. And I actually really struggled to answer that question on the spot when he asked me. But now sitting back, it's like, okay, what if we just, like, you can't fix anyone. The outside people cannot fix you. You got to do the work. No one's going to come to save you. But what the outside people can do, what people who love you can do, is simply push you in the right direction instead of trying to fix you. Because I feel like if you're trying to fix them, it gives them this false sense of like success, where they think, oh, because they're helping me, I'm meant to succeed. And then when it doesn't happen, you feel even worse. So I think one thing that I've really appreciated is people being real. And that's like huge to help you learn the right things and learn the right way, so that you actually can take the right lessons away from these sorts of things.
Yeah, 100%.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I have this moment where sometimes when sort of I'm a little bit stressed doing this or stressed at work, or I'm very easy to not give up on myself, and I'm very easy to be like, you know, I need a rest day or I need to do this.
Yeah.
And it's just me sort of procrastinating what I need to be doing.
Yeah.
And my family or friends sort of sympathize with me and go, yeah, you probably do.
Yeah.
And I tell them, I go, listen, do not say that to me. I go, what do you mean? I go, tell me to keep going.
Yeah, literally.
Tell me to keep
it
going.
real.
Keep it real. Tell me just to, you know what I need to do. And then so Jordan, my partner's just, I'll be like, oh, have you done this yet? And I go, oh, no, I haven't done it yet. And she goes, you need to fucking do it.
Yeah.
And I go, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You know, and that's all I need is for someone to keep it real with me and go, Elliot, you need to put your finger out.
Bloody oath.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so important, especially the things like people underestimate what procrastination can do to you.
Oh, yeah.
But like even when you get really, really deep, it's like you just got to keep it real. That's probably the best way to put it. If you are that person who's looking after someone who's going through something like a loved one, then keep it real. Like you got to so that they're learning the right lessons instead of giving them that false sense of success or false sense of hope. Yeah.
When were you always drawn to fitness? Was that something that you found earlier on in your childhood?
Yeah, for sure. I grew up playing Aussie rules. That was my dream forever, and that's where I will tie into my story. But mate, through that I was training, trying to make state teams. Obviously, the ultimate goal was to play in the AFL, and you know, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I was getting people telling me that I was good, all that sort of stuff. I was making state teams, playing for Queensland. All those sorts of things, and I absolutely loved every part of it. It was so good. And you make mates who are now in the AFL, stuff like that. So it's pretty cool to see what they've achieved, but then it also can be like that.
That's what you haven't.
Yeah. It's like I could be out there, but like I think of like Will Ashcroft. Like I remember I was playing in the Queensland state team with him for 2 years. We were in the schoolboys team, and like he's obviously an absolute gun now. Won a Norm Smith. It's like, holy shit, that's crazy that I was playing with him and was versing him rep sides, and
that doesn't surprise you where he's gone, the level he's at, like
no,
playing with him.
No way. It's everyone was like, oh yeah, he's already in
really?
from a young age. Yeah, like we just knew, and
he had it.
The way he is now is how he's always been. It's crazy to see how he's like. He was so professional as a 12-year-old. I think back, mate, I'm like, oh my God, I thought I was good. Like this guy's like got headphones on, bobbing his head before the game, like doing all these warm-ups and, you know, crab walking with a band around his knees and all that hectic stuff. Like, mate, you're 12 years old. You don't need a warm-up properly like that. You're not going to do a hamstring or anything.
Born warmed up.
Yeah, exactly. At this age, you don't got to worry about that.
And obviously his little brother Levi's come through as well.
Exactly. So it's cool to, like, I love that. That's so good to see someone that you've seen before, but then it also can bring in that sort of, you know, I wish I kept going or something like that. But at the end of the day, I put it down to everything's happening for a reason. I wouldn't be who I am right now if I went and played AFL. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. I'd probably be in a worse spot, to be honest, because of the pressure that it brings. But yeah, mate, I've had a love for fitness and stuff from a young age. I started training with my S&C coach from 11. I was doing like the bare minimum. So I was training twice a week in the gym, and like, mate, it was hectic, but that's how bad I wanted it back then. And I guess that sort of carries over to my work ethic with work these days and the way I train. But like I was doing like, you know, push-ups, like inchworms, the simplest stuff, doing sled pushes, sled pulls, up hills, sprints, all that sort of stuff. And and as I got older, started getting into the weights and stuff. My strength and conditioning coach was like a key part of like all my knowledge now in terms of me as a personal trainer and how much I've learnt, because I was with him for like 7 years.
Incredible.
And as soon as I stopped playing footy, that's when I stopped working with him. I guess most of it would come from just me training for footy, and I've just loved running and gym and looking big and stuff like that.
Where do you get that work ethic from, especially at a young age?
My dad.
Did he drill into you, did he?
My dad, no, he's very driven.
Is he?
And I see it. And even now, he's 52 years old, and he's training for his like second or third half marathon.
Is he?
He's 52 and he's fitter than me. So
is he really? Yeah,
he would. Oh mate, 100%. Like he trains every single day. Probably trains twice a day, maybe 4 out of the 7 days of the week.
Wow.
Runs, cycle, gym. His thing was cycling growing up.
Yeah.
As I was growing up, he was more of a cyclist. But as he's gotten older, he's gotten into running, and now that's more of his thing. He loves running in the gym. So, my dad's work ethic. He has his own business, obviously, and he's made that very successful when it's literally just him, and the amount of success that I see he gets from that.
Yeah.
And I obviously witness him working hard because he works from home. So it's like I see him in the office for, I don't know, however long he is. And but even, my dad's always been incredibly motivating for me in terms of training, and even for my work. He just wants me to be successful. So I guess you can say I've learnt it off what he does through action, but also through his words and how he likes to fire me up big time.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? Because I've heard that there's a saying that kids don't listen to what we say, they watch how we live.
Yeah.
You know, and like even sort of the things that I've gone through in my life are very similar to what sort of my dad's career path has sort of gone down, and like sort of who we are as people. And I'm thinking that's interesting because he never told me to do certain things or be a certain person, but I've ended up similar to who he is and the way he's lived his life.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting when I heard that saying, I'm like, it is true. Like we watch how how our parents be as adults, and we sort of mimic them as we sort of grow up.
And I even think about how my dad laughs. I laugh like my dad, like it's like a machine gun laugh, and everyone can hear it. And it's one of those laughs that if you hear it, you'll do a little chuckle or something like that. You know what I mean? So, but even the way my dad talks and the way my dad socializes, the way I have a lot of my mum and my dad in me. I can see that, but my dad and the way that he talks to people and my communication skills come from my dad. My speak, I like to think that I'm pretty good at speaking, and my dad loves to speak, loves to chat people's ears off. So that's so true, mate. It's so true. I love that because it's pretty cool to be able to say that you like your dad.
Yeah.
I mean, not everyone is fortunate enough to have a good relationship with their dad, but for those who are, you can be pretty grateful for the person you become because of them.
Absolutely. When you look back now, can you see the early signs of struggles that come later in your life? So when you're sort of growing up?
I love that. That's such a good question. Yeah, for sure.
You did.
I think about on the footy field when I was playing footy growing up. I was a bit of I'm not going to say like soft, but I'd get fired up really easily. And it's almost like I relate it in a way to, okay, I'm like, someone's pissed me off, or, I don't know if you know what a tag means in footy, like where you're getting tagged.
Yeah.
Like I
hate that.
I was always getting that, just even in junior footy. And there was even this one kid, this one team, Kiwana, we versed Kiwana, and I'm sure some of these boys might even hear this, but I'm still mates with them.
Yeah.
And whenever we versed them, I hated it. I was going into that game expecting to get angry or get in a fight or something like that. And I think I would always get fired up, and then, tears would flow. I'd be getting so angry. And my mum brought it up with me and says that I can fold when not so much under pressure in terms of like footy skills and stuff like that, but more so my actions and how I fold in the sense where it's like I just give up or I'll just crack the shit. And
in terms of your mindset.
I'm like, okay, nah, fuck this, I'm done. And it carries over. I think it's a little bit different because I ended up, people made it seem not okay when I was doing that sort of stuff. Like coaches would get angry at me for acting that way. And I mean, it's such a good question, and I couldn't really pinpoint that sort of thing, but I definitely see it in how I was reacting on the footy field, that's for sure. And
not being able to sort of regulate your emotions.
Yeah, for sure. So I ended up hiding it. And
really? Suppressing it?
Yeah, and after it got to that was like a 1.5 year period, which was just when shit hit the fan for me. That was after I stopped playing footy. And I think footy was almost a part of my outlet to express the emotions that I was feeling. And as soon as I stopped playing that, I didn't know how to get it out of my system. So it stayed in there pretty much.
Yeah,
so I love that question though.
Who are you? Who were you at your lowest point, and what did it look like on the surface compared to what was really going on inside?
I still would. I'd be similar to who I am now.
Really?
Like outgoing. I like to think I'm pretty outgoing. I can bring a lot of energy, especially around my family. My family would have had no idea. Like, I think about my cousins and stuff like that. My friends at school. Yeah, I was like, I was no different to sort of what I am now on the surface. But deep down, I was insecure, hated myself, absolutely could not find one bit of love. I look at myself in the mirror and just get so angry at myself and ask all these questions that's like, why? Like, what have I done to be the way I am right now? And I was also, like, deep down, I was a really angry person. Like, as a young kid, I was very angry. And that came out on the footy field. There was actually a time as well where my mum copped it when I was 10 years old. I remember this very, very clearly. I was 10 years old. We got a set of stairs at our house, and I can't remember exactly what I was getting arced up about, but I ended up being so angry that I literally jumped off the stairs onto my mum out of anger, and she bulged a disc in her back. And I injured her and didn't care.
Wow.
In that moment. And I'm sure, and I mean, I was thinking about this on the way here actually, and how people who are a bit older say that when you're younger, you're not sad, you're not depressed. And I think that's the biggest load of shit ever. Like, if there's anyone who's going to be depressed, it can be young kids because they're trying to figure out who the hell they are. And I've had people say that to me. Like, when I talk about it these days, it's like, mate, you weren't depressed. You weren't sad. You were just figuring yourself out. Maybe it is that, but you feel these feelings that come up, and so be it. Like, it's just ridiculous how people can say that at a young age, just because you're young and you haven't experienced life, that you're not depressed or got anxiety.
Your emotions aren't valid.
Yeah. And I spoke to people about that when I was trying to heal and stuff like that, and it didn't help me, but... It's really interesting how I look back now at, and how I actually used to think, oh yeah, I was just sad. But no, I actually had like something going in my brain that could have caused me to not be here anymore. And
where do you think that the anger comes from? I know you mentioned sort of earlier when we first started talking about sort of seeking that, I guess, that attention that maybe your brother was getting. Do you reckon that turned into a bit
100%.
You reckon?
Yeah. And that's where it stemmed from, I think. And I spoke to my mentor about it, and that's why I ended up having a conversation with my mum. And otherwise I wouldn't have learnt about that, in a sense. How it was, she literally remembers when I was 10 months old, I flipped and I started changing the way I was acting. Apparently I was a pretty, like, obviously a bit of a, like, I'm, as a baby, pretty, this is getting really far back in my life, and some people don't have the beauty of understanding this, but my mum told me this, and yeah, that flip of the switch when I was 10 months old, and how I started to act out in order to get attention. So it's pretty cool for me to be able to learn that though. My brother being like that, like, I always get so emotional now when I think about my older brother and how I mean, right now it's like, for me, this is something for me to work through, but the guilt that I feel for going through all that stuff, and I used to blame him in a sense. Obviously my parents copped the brunt of it, but I never understood why my brother was the way he was until probably I was like 18, 19. And it's so upsetting to me that I hate that I went through all of this stuff, but I'm so glad I did, because it's helped me have a better relationship with him now. Because I used to pretty much bully him. I always used to think it was fun and games, and some of it was being a younger brother, just having fun, mucking around, but
throwing that banter. But
yeah, but sometimes it actually was.
You're acting out.
I was acting out because he was getting all this. It was that pattern that I got from a young age, and it's crazy how I think that, because my friends used to say, like you literally bully him and stuff like that. They weren't actually having a go at me, but it's like, it's funny, but you bully him, and I'm like, I know it's so funny, isn't it? Like, I find it so funny, but. It always ended up in my parents getting angry at me, and then I'd be like, why are you always getting angry at me? I'd ask, Yeah, like I literally remember it so clearly. Every time me and my brother had like a fight or we were going back and forth, I would always say to my parents, "You're always getting angry at me," or you know what I mean. Like I was always blaming them for getting angry at me because Kaylin never did anything wrong. So it's pretty cool for me to be able to learn that now. It's probably changed my persona in a way of when I do something wrong. It's like I own it now.
You acknowledge it.
Yeah, and it's the same in every relationship that I've had with friends, girlfriends, my family. And that's a pretty big skill to learn to almost, I like to hold myself to a high standard, and what people say, if people were to talk about me behind my back, I'd love for it to be good things. So, that's been a massive turning point in terms of growing up and understanding why I was the way I was when I was younger, and why it's stuck with me as I get older.
When did the weight of it all become too much? Was there the first thought of in your head thinking, I can't do this anymore?
I don't think I could pinpoint the very first time, but I can pinpoint the time where I actually was going to do it and where I thought my life wasn't worth living anymore. And it starts at the point of I stopped going to school. I think that's actually probably a point where it was started to all get too much. So I started faking being sick. I was like, I can't go to school, and then it ended up becoming like I just refused to go, and it would cause massive arguments at home. I was like, I'm just not going, and my parents didn't understand why. And so end up not going to school for the whole of grade 10, term 4. So for 2 months, I was at home, not going to school, doing no schoolwork. I was lucky enough to they gave me like my grade 10 certificate, whatever you call it. But that's when it sort of got too much for me, that I had the point where I couldn't focus at school. I had, in the last little few weeks, like I had teachers standing behind me in every class. They were sending me to the enrichment centre, I think it's called, at the school I went to, Suncoast Christian College, just up the road. So I think that's probably I guess you could call that the first point in time, and where it was all too much for me, because if I kept going to school, I probably would have cracked at school, and bad things could have happened because of my anger at that age.
What was it about school? Was it about just that frustration, that emotional build up? What was it about going to school?
I started self-sabotaging friendships.
Oh, did you?
So we spoke about before how on the footy field at a younger age, how it started to show what, like, early in my life, the way that I was as I grew up. And I started to self-sabotage friendships, and I mean, I don't want to say that I was getting bullied by friends, but I was almost doing it to myself in a way. But I used to feel like I was getting ganged up on, getting left out, and obviously just stuff going on at home with my parents. Yeah, well,
it's the same sort of feeling. You're getting that feeling at school, but you're also getting a similar feeling at home, being not ganged up on, but maybe sort of feeling left out.
Yeah, and I put that down to, I'm not going to put it down to my older brother, but that's it. Like that realization for me recently was is the reason why I have always been acting out as a young kid and getting fired up to try and get attention, because I feel like I never got it as I was younger. And my parents will probably listen to this, and I know that they don't think that they haven't done anything wrong. That they've done anything wrong, because we've had this conversation. But then I spoke to Mum, and I said, like, it's so good that I can learn this stuff, and that it has happened. Like we spoke about before, I wouldn't be able to learn this stuff about myself if it didn't happen. You know what I mean? And it's like finding, okay, there's something positive out of this situation that not many people can find for a little while in their life. So for me to be able to figure that out at 21, I'm pretty happy with that.
And it's also sort of my perspective, and just hearing you chat now is to as difficult that was, and as angry we can be with our parents sometimes, it's good for us to understand that it's they're going through life too for the first time, and not be so hard on them, you know, when mum and dad are going through that generation of parenting and what to teach the kids about emotional regulation and having those deep chats. And it's so easy for me now to be like, why didn't you know this back in the 90s?
Literally.
That wasn't known in the 90s, Elliot. Like, no one knew about that sort of stuff. And like, even with your parents, like they're navigating a son with a disability and then another son and then trying to like, you know, love you, which they also obviously did, but also navigating that of how to raise a son with a disability. You know, it's a new ground for them as well.
And now obviously he's older, he's more independent. And it's lesser of responsibility for them. So obviously there's less of the chance of an altercation happening with me and Kaylin. He obviously doesn't live at home, so which is really cool. It's really cool to say that my older brother, like if you met him, he's always been really like a massive homebody and loves to be on his own. But so I love that point because I feel like as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, everything can be your parents' fault. And like it's so true. Like there's nothing more true than that. That's such a good point to make in terms of understanding that because for me personally, I was so angry at my parents growing up. And you just don't even think about that at that age. And fair enough, like you got to learn. And that's the power of learning stuff through painful situations. But if you can get that out there, that's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. I know you've sort of spoken about this day publicly and the day that you tried to end your life. And can you take me there and you can share as little or as much as you feel comfortable?
Yeah, for sure. It's almost, it's not that I like talking about it, but from the impact that I've made on some people's lives, like DMs I've gotten, family, friends calling me and telling me that this has helped their children who I actually know, it does give me the motivation to want to speak about it. So I'm more than happy to. And I guess it started obviously all that time period where I wasn't at school for 2 months in that year of grade 10, I think it was 2018. And so at the first week of December is called Catholic Week, and it's like the first week of school holidays. And so we go camping at Cotton. We were doing camping at Cotton Tree every year. We've done it for years and years in a row. Haven't done it for a little while, but so we go with a big group of people, bunch of my friends from footy and my street as well. Our street was pretty close. And basically, so we went camping we go for like 5-6 nights, and then a group of me and my mates. This was my first time hanging out with people in a while. Since that 2 months of not going to school, I was pretty much alone.
Isolated,
Yeah, I was very isolated, so I didn't really know how to socialise in a sense. So one of the nights we ended up going to the movies, and I think from memory, I feel like some of those kids might have been told to include me, to be honest, because I do remember feeling like a bit of an outsider during that week in as a whole. But I remember two of the boys are one of my good mates to this day. And I was actually speaking to one of them about this the other day. But so we went to the movies at the Plaza. We just walked there from Cotton Tree Caravan Park. And there was like probably a group of 7 or 8 of us, 6 or 7 or 8 of us. And we sat down. And, at a young age, at 16, we were with a few girls as well. All the boys want to sit in the middle next to the girls. And I was like, I ended up sitting on the outside. And obviously with the feelings I was already feeling, I was very, I felt isolated already. And especially from the past 2 months, it just instilled in my mind that, I do not belong around these people. So literally probably 10 minutes into the movie, I spoke to my mate, Josh. I said to him, who's my mate to this day, I said, I'm just going to go to the toilet. And long story short, I was not going to the toilet. I walked out of the movies, and I'm pretty sure it's like 8 o'clock at night at this point, and walked from the Plaza to Alex Heads, the top of Alex. And as I was walking there, I had a message already half drafted up to my mum that I'd actually started writing before previously, weeks before. Because this wasn't really like my first attempt, I would say, but it was more so my where I started to act on it. Like I was literally going to. It
wasn't your first thought. You've thought about it.
Yeah, it wasn't the first time I thought about it, and I have harmed myself and hurt myself before. But I don't want to get sidetracked. But anyway, so I sent my mum a message saying all these things. I'm like, I'm sorry for the way I am. I'm sorry. Like, simply a sorry story for me being the way I am, and for me and what I'm about to do, and for the pain it's going to cause, and for not being good enough to make the footy, like making all of these things that were in my head. And I can't really remember. I was actually trying to get mum to see if she still had the message a few days ago, and I think she said she was going to have a look for it. So I'd actually love to see it. But anyway, yeah, send her that message. You know what you do. Unfortunately, when we're planning on ending our life, we'll send a message to our loved ones. And didn't write any letters. I just sent a message to mum. And that's the only person I sent a message to. And after I send that, phone starts going off. Like, people calling me. I had my auntie calling me. I had my dad calling me. Mum spam calling me. All these text messages. I've never seen anything like it. And I simply turned my phone fully off. And as I was walking, get to the top of Alex Hill, and there's this one particular part of Alex Hill that's a straight drop off, and I got up on the edge of it, on the fence, and there's like some fencing along Alex that they had. I don't actually think it's still there now. I think it's all bush, but I was sitting on the edge of that, and 2 minutes after I got up there, and just contemplating it, jumping off, my auntie rocks up. And it's crazy how she's the one that rocks up, because she's the one who was there for me so much and still is to this day. And for her to rock up behind me with how numb I was feeling, I instantly broke down. And obviously in that sort of situation, you are very, like, it's going to be raw for something like that, something as big as those feelings of literally. And at the end of the day, I don't know what would have happened if she was any later. But the fact that she was there was so quick was amazing, because of how she's been that person for me growing up, who's guided me through so many things. And it's as much as I'm so grateful for her, sometimes I feel a little bit guilty in terms of how much I thank my parents for what they've done as well. But I got to give my love to all to my auntie in that situation, because of I still can't believe that she was the first one to me. And I spoke to her on the phone about this, actually, literally probably 2 months ago. I was just curious about it. And it popped in my mind. Ever since I started sharing this stuff, a lot of stuff's come up that I've wanted to go back and revisit. But so then anyway, she was talking to me, distracting me. The police come up and drag me off the thing. And this is actually where for me it sort of starts to turn in a way. And obviously the police, the police were called. My mum obviously probably called them, but anyway, they dragged me off and were talking to me and trying to take me to the mental health ward and just take me straight there. They said they'd already called up. There's a bed for you. We're taking you there, but you have to say yes. And I said no. There was no chance I was doing that. Obviously, still so closed off. I do remember I didn't say a word to anyone really. I was just walking off, and then the police got me up off the ground. I was like sitting on the ground, and I remember looking around and seeing all of these people that came, that were obviously looking for me. And one of them was my friend, who's one of my closest friends to this day. One of those friends that you can not see for 5 years and still feel super close. And being 16 years old, thinking no one loves me or cares about me, and having this just feeling like I'm worth nothing, and even if I wasn't here, no one would care. But out of everyone that was there, to see her, who was probably my longest friend, to see her bawling her eyes out in her mum's arms, and her mum bawling her eyes out, and all these people crying, seeing me walking over to a police car, it was a massive, holy shit. This is they're not here for no reason. These people love me and care for me. And if I wasn't here, look at the pain I would have caused. Look at the pain I just caused purely through a scare. and without even acting. And like it's so. And then I can't even remember if my parents were there, to be honest. But I just seeing everyone upset and crying. It's like I really struggled to not make myself feel guilty for hurting these people. Like instantly, I start to blame myself again. And that's just crazy that I blame myself for hurting these people in that sort of situation when I needed some love for myself. And to experience that at 16 years old in public was hectic. Like that's probably the best word to describe it, to be honest. Like all these other strangers, I'm looking around, seeing all these strangers concerned about what's going on. And then and then the crazy thing is, I said no to the police, obviously. I ended up just going back to camping and acting like nothing happened.
Really?
Yeah. And for me, that was purely because of how closed off I was. Deep down, I knew there's change that needed to happen, but I'm still too scared to take action on it. So I remember I got in the police car. I had to get in there and they do their thing. I don't even know what they do, and then I was good to go. And because I didn't say yes to go on the mental health ward, they couldn't take me. Yeah. And I remember I jumped in. Don't take my word for this, but I'm actually pretty sure my mum said she didn't want to, she couldn't see me. It was too much for her. So I ended up jumping in the car with my friend who I saw was bawling her eyes out to her mum. Jumped in the car and we just went back to camping.
Would have been a different vibe at camping.
Yeah, and the next day I ended up going home with my dad because obviously it was 10 minutes from home.
Yeah.
And I ended up staying there, but it just shows that that wasn't the end for me in terms of my struggles, but it was a turning point in okay, I don't want to be like this anymore. That was such a humiliating experience to go through in front of all these people seeing me in that state. And I also, the other side of it where I said that before, look at how it's affected these people and there was no action. And for anyone out there who's sort of having these thoughts, it's not that there's a conversation about suicide being selfish. I think it's a controversial topic and it's never selfish to do that because of what thoughts are going on in your head. But think about the love that people have for you. You shouldn't, at the end of the day, you should never feel like you have to do something and act out to get people's attention. But I look back and that's why I did it. That's why I was going to do it, because I wanted people to see. I wanted people to see me. I didn't feel seen. And unfortunately, I know my parents would get upset hearing this, but it's because of my childhood. And it's not that I'm blaming them. I'm so grateful that it happened, but my parents and my older brother, I'm not going to say they're the reason, but the experiences that I had in life growing up were the reason that I did that day. Because I wanted to feel seen, and I felt like that was the only option. And obviously everything else bottling up with life, having no purpose, no footy, no school, just alone with my thoughts all the time.
Isolation, yeah.
Yeah, and just all bottles up and gets too much. And it's one of those things where this is one thing I've struggled with personally, and obviously my story is my story, but you hear other stories. And I've heard briefly your story, and you hear about other people's on your podcast and other people who have had suicide attempts, and you compare it. And I compare it, sometimes I'm like, mine's nothing compared to some people. But for people who, if people are listening to this right now and you've had that thought before, your story is just as important as anyone's, because you get to learn something from it. But also, if we are always just comparing, and especially stuff as deep as this, it doesn't help validate your feelings that you need, and it does not help us get any better when we're comparing
our pain.
Yeah, our pain.
My 10 out of 10 pain compared to your 10 out of 10, it's the exact same.
Exactly.
It's all relative.
And this is where people can go even more downhill. is when they're comparing, and I'm so guilty of it. And even now when I talk about it, I'm like, I was just, and this is where I spoke to you, I said before about me being 16 and people saying, like, you're just young and learning. It's like, no, bro. Like, this hurts. Like, I was hurting. I was genuinely felt like I didn't have a place on the planet.
Or you're 16, you don't know what hurt is.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, when do I figure out when hurt is?
100%. You know? So, and I know that there's people out there who think that because I was thinking it in the moments. It's like, this is why, that's why I wasn't speaking about it. I'm only 16. I'm not supposed to think these things. It's like making it not okay for me to feel the way I do.
Which makes it worse.
Yeah. So, and that's something I honestly, to be completely vulnerable, that I still struggle with when I talk about it. And I'm like, it was a suicide attempt. I was going to end my life. And I don't see what would have stopped me if my auntie didn't rock up any earlier than she did or later than she did. Like, I was so set on it. I was so sick of life, so sick of feeling lonely and isolated and out of place and lack of purpose and all those sorts of things. And again, it's just that the thief is the comparison of joy. And it's a little bit different in this sort of situation. It's not like we're looking for joy. We're just looking to feel like life's worth living. And
did you feel seen in that moment when everyone was showing so much emotion, sadness, watching you?
No. You
didn't feel seen?
I felt guilty.
You felt guilty.
And I mean, now I look at it in a way like something I still feel guilty when I think about putting people through that. And that was just one of the times where I put people in that sort of state where they would be shitting themselves, thinking, what's Harry going to do next? Is he going to hurt himself? Is he going to run away and never come back? Like, I dead set that the amount of times that shit hit the fan and I would threaten to disappear. And it's insane, but that's probably obviously that moment in my life is probably the most real in terms of getting so close to it happening. But yeah, mate, like, just guilt, 100% guilt for making these people feel the way they did. And it doesn't help in the moment, but then you end up getting, speaking to people about it and you learn your lessons. I've fully skipped a part here. I ended up going to the next week, volunteering to go to the mental health ward.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So I think it was about a week and a half later, and I said to my mum, I need to go. Like, this moment, like that moment was when my life changed. Like,
really?
100%. And when I voluntarily asked for help, that was the first ever time I said I needed help from this, like, thing that was going on in my life. It was one of the people who are going through these things keep a lot of it to themselves. They're too scared, the men's stigma of it ain't weak to speak, that sort of thing. Like, I was scared to speak. And when I did that, that's when my life changed, and you learn the skill. I learned the skill of asking for help. So I ended up going to the mental health ward for about 2 weeks. Worst experience of my life ever. That was worse. That was worse than the actual attempt.
In what way?
The people that are there. You being in that environment was scary as fuck. Like, I was lucky that I was 16 because I might not have been. I can't actually remember how old I was. I might have been 15 actually, and because I think when you're 16 you go into the adult one, and
that would have been hectic.
Yeah, I was in the children's one, thank God, because you hear stories about stuff that goes on. But even in the children's one, I don't think I slept. There's screaming, punching the walls. Like, some of them don't even come out of their room. They're literally isolated in their room because they slap, punch, scratch, all this sort of stuff. And just the screaming feels like someone's getting murdered. Like, bro, it was the scariest thing of my life. And every night, I didn't have my phone, nothing like that. Every night I got to, like, speak to my parents on the phone. Or they'd come in and see me and we'd hang out for an hour or so, and I would always just be begging for them to let me out, and I just regretted saying I needed to go in there so much, but it also taught me so much as well. But it's crazy how those things are supposed to help you, but unfortunately it didn't help me at all. But it was like, okay, it's time to change.
Yeah.
Like, I need to.
You need to. So what was the hardest part, sort of facing yourself in the mirror afterwards?
The thought of what people think of me now. You know, you obviously keep these things to yourself for a reason because you're scared of what people are going to think of you for feeling the way you do, and especially being a bloke as well. Not disregarding women and how they struggle with this sort of stuff, but for who I was and how I was surface level, like we spoke about before, I was like, all these people think I'm fine, and now I'm going to come out and they've all seen how I really am, and it's like, this isn't what I wanted. I didn't want these people to see this side of me. This isn't who I wanted to be known for. And like looking at myself in the mirror, obviously it takes that time for you to start to forgive yourself for something like that. But yeah, it's as simple as who am I now? Like, what person am I? Like it was just those questions, and like, why did I do that? Why did I feel like this? And why do I still feel like this? So as a 15, 16-year-old, facing yourself is probably one of the hardest things, because that's when you're learning who you truly are as you're growing up through your teenage years. And I mean, everyone's on their own path, but for me, that's when I was learning a lot about myself, because I experienced that at that age and to that extent as well. So yeah, facing myself and facing the people who were there that night was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
Did you ever find yourself pretending to be okay to make others comfortable?
100%.
You did.
I was always scared of what my mum would do. Because I do remember sometimes when I'd act out and how she would act when I acted out. Like, you know, there would be times where I'd get on my bike and I'd ride off and turn my phone off and not come back for hours. Police are looking for me. Like, there was multiple times where that happened. I live in Budrum, and there was actually one night where I ended up in Moffat Beach on my bike at 15 years old.
It's a long way away.
Yeah. So there was times like that. And I didn't even, in those moments, I'm like, I didn't really care what people were thinking. I didn't care what I was doing. I just wanted to escape. And and in those times, maybe deep down I was trying to do it for that attention again. But I was so numb in those moments. I was like, I don't give a shit. I just need to escape and be in my own little world and do my own things. And yeah, these people don't care about me, so I don't care about you. It was like tit for tat in a sense.
Yeah. How did your circle change once you started that healing process? Did anyone leave? Who stayed?
Obviously, I always had my family.
Yeah.
But I got closer to them.
You did? Yeah,
especially my auntie and my uncle, who's also another big part of my life. He's almost like been a second dad to me at times. We've had altercations where it's like we're yelling at each other. I was in Europe we had a big family holiday last year, and we're on a cruise, and he actually was like yelling at me in my face and everything, like a dad would be to their 20-year-old son, trying to put him in their place. And yeah, we had a massive falling out there. But he is one of those people who holds me to a high standard, and he's taken me for drives. He's picked me up, and he's done so much for me. Like, he's taken me around Australia to watch footy, stuff like that. But he's also been that person for me to give me the real stuff about life. But then obviously I ended up moving schools, so my circle did change. I haven't spoken to any of the people really from Suncoast in a long time. I see them out and about, and they had no idea what I was going through, and they would have found out when I started posting this stuff.
Really?
So it's interesting to think what they think, and they're like, "Oh, that's where he was," and it's cool because some of them have actually reached out and said, "Wow, I had no idea," and that shows how I was surface level. But then, obviously moved schools, made some new mates. I was already mates with a few of the boys that were at Mountain Creek, and life changed pretty good. Started playing footy again. Obviously still had a bit of issues with my purpose and identity, and footy was a massive part of my life, so I was still on and off with that for a few years, and then ended up sticking to it for a little while. And so my circle ended up being my footy mates. I was always my life was just footy again. and then I started my own business, and this is where the journey started of me really dialing into who I am and learning about my past and my story, and diving into it and actually trying to learn. And okay, that's why that happened, and this is why I am the way I am right now. And it's because of what happened back then. And
there's no one to blame. There's no one at fault.
Exactly.
It's just it is what it is.
And to be where I am now is so cool, because I've got people messaging me asking for help, asking for advice on things, and some of it's pretty deep. And I'm like,
it probably blow your mind too how many people are going through similar situations. That, from my perspective too, I just thought I'm the only one feeling like this. There's no one else. You know, everyone's story is different. Everyone's upbringing is different. But you just always think that I'm in this alone. No one else is ever going to relate to me. Until you actually start putting it out there and you're realizing, holy shit, there's way more people in this world that is going through similar things that are struggling.
100%. And when you see that, I mean, obviously I went through it all, but if people can see that in the moments where they need it most, it'll bring a sense of peace, I feel like. Because, in that moment, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm the only one going through this. No one else is struggling. They all look fine. They're all having fun hanging out with their mates. And, at the movies, they're all good. They're all happy. They all love each other. And I'm just here. I don't belong. And I think as soon as it's all life experience. Like, this is where there's the fine line between being young and going through things, and also actually experiencing it and it being real, because it is real. But it does also come down to you're experiencing it to learn a lesson, because every painful experience in life has something you can take away from it. Like, that's the one thing that I've shifted in my mindset since starting to learn and really dive deep into why I felt those things. And I'm probably at the very start of learning all this stuff about my mental health and other people's mental health. Like, I'm a few months into it, where I've recently shared my story and really dived deep into it. But the amount of people that reach out and validate the way I felt, in a sense, it's like, it's part of the healing, to be honest. To hear all these other people who struggled or are struggling, to be able to help guide people through it. And there's literally a few young 15, 16, 17-year-olds that I'm chatting to, which obviously is not weird. Like, I'm helping them out, being like an older brother for them, in a sense. And they just message me to tell me the cool things that are happening, and then, similar experiences to what I had. And that is exactly what I needed when I was that age, to have that person to lean on and to tell me that it's okay and that you are loved and all these good things are going to happen. You just got to you got to stick it out. This is just a part of.
And that's an interesting topic too, talking about, I guess, your generation of masculinity and what's it like being a young man now, because it's obviously extremely different to how I grew up. I didn't have the social media. I didn't have these other influences. From your point of view, how has your sort of view on masculinity shifted during that sort of process? And then also, mentoring these young boys. What's your take on that?
It's harder for us in this generation. It's harder for everyone now, because we all have access to social media. But to see all this false reality on social media that people talk about, you compare yourself, you compare your life to all these people on social media, especially people who are, most of the time we're going to compare to, if you're a male, you're going to compare to a bloke that you see on social media and their life that they're living, the money they have, how they provide for their family. Obviously, as you get older, that gets a little bit more intense. Around my age, it probably peaks for a lot of blokes where they're like, okay, shit's getting real now. I'm 21, 22. I've got to start working towards the life I want to live. Like, that's just my opinion. Obviously, everyone's on their own, running at their own pace. And that's where the comparison comes in, doesn't it? Right there. Like, you just heard it when I spoke and said that thing. And with the masculine stuff, I feel like a lot of blokes these days actually have a lot more feminine energy than what they did back maybe when you were younger. Especially myself. I know that I have that feminine side of me a little bit because of how my relationship with my mum would definitely be a part of that. But I think social media is the biggest thing and the biggest factor these days for young people going through mental health issues, and like the comparison of comparing their lives to unrealistic things on social media.
So everyone's highlight reel, isn't it? And
100%.
it's like, I'm trying to understand and get more clarity around when I'm a father, it's understanding what success means to someone.
Yeah.
I think...
And it's different for everyone.
It's different for everyone. I don't think there's who am I to say there's a right and wrong view on success, Yeah. If you think success is getting paid lots of money, then who am I to say that's not success?
Yeah.
But I look at it in a way that's sort of like, I understand sort of job security and getting financially stable and understand that sort of thing. But success for me is not chasing those sort of fake dopamine hits of wanting that external validation, or people thinking I'm popular, or people wanting my attention, or me wanting other people's attention. Is getting that clarity around success is like, how do I feel about myself?
Yeah.
And that's something that obviously you're working through now, which 100%. Is amazing, is like, how do I view myself? When I go to bed at night, do I love myself?
Yeah.
And I know that sounds a bit woo and a bit bloody hippie to some people, but understanding that you're your own best friend, and like learning to regulate your emotions, knowing that so many people I see, I have conversations with people at work about sort of their partners and having relationship stuff, and they get triggered so easily at the partner doing something and never really take accountability of what they're sort of doing in the relationship. And I'm like, the best way for you to be the best partner for your husband, for your wife, is to be the best version of yourself.
100%.
Like, stop saying, they need to work on this, they're not doing this, they're not doing this. Honestly, take accountability of what you've done and go, how can I be the best version of myself? Because something that I've learned is the more I work on myself, the more I become a better version, the better fiance I am, the better brother I am, the better son I am, the better friend I am. I'm, the more access I have to my own emotions, the more I can sort of have more clarity and access around sort of my friends' emotions and what they're feeling, and sort of being a bit more open and understanding and not so much closed off. I think that's one of the things that success is for me is obviously the thief of joy is that comparison thing that we talked about. And it's hard because you're on social media and you slip into it every now and again. You're like, I'm 34. Am I meant to be where I'm meant to be? Like, other 34-year-olds have got this and this, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm exactly where I need to be in life.
Yeah, 100%. And that is so true. Like, even in my relationship now, it's like the amount of times that I've fucked up because I'm not thinking about myself and I'm thinking about her, or I'm thinking about our relationship, and I have to like serve everything. I can just do everything for the relationship rather than being the best version of me, so that I can be like in this grounded space to be able to think and act and do the things from the right place. Instead of the relationship being the reason that you feel fulfilled in life, it's a bonus to the fulfillment you already have. It's
almost a byproduct of who you are, isn't it? It's like that's what creeps in, that people pleasing.
Yep.
Is like that creeps into the relationship. I'll do everything for them, so then they'll love me or stay with me.
Yeah.
And then when that doesn't get met or something happens, it's you feel like impacted yourself. Like, I'm a less person, or I'm not feel worthy enough because this isn't happening. It's just like, I had a conversation with Jordan, my fiance, and we were listening to a podcast, and I can't remember what sparked this question, but something came up, and I said, "Oh, do I put you first, don't I?" And she paused, and she went, "Yeah, after yourself." And instantly I went, "Fuck."
Yeah.
Like, I didn't say it out loud, but in my head I went,
"Yeah.
Oh fuck, don't I put you first?" And I said to her, I go, "Oh shit, I didn't know you felt like that. Do I not put you first?" And she goes, No, you do, after yourself.
In a healthy way.
And she said, "No, that's what it should be."
Yeah, I love that.
And I was like, "Oh." And she reassured me. She's like, No, that's what we want.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to put me first after yourself.
Yeah.
Because if a lot of people go into the relationships or get in certain situations where you're constantly feeding someone else, and then that's all good. That seems good on the surface. That seems good for a week, a month, 6 months. That seems all right.
Yeah.
But in the long run, you'll just start getting worse and worse and worse.
Well, it's draining.
It's draining
when you're constantly serving other people, because you've got to be able to fill your own cup and do the things that you need. And some people who thrive off giving to other people
Yes.
can actually end up draining you so much that you've got nothing left to give them. And then you also got nothing left to give yourself, and that's when people fall into these ruts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm sure my auntie speaks to me a lot about that sort of stuff and how you give and giving to other people and what it does to your energy and how it eliminates your ability to be able to give yourself the things you need. Because at the end of the day, we are the only ones that are with each other, with ourselves. Like we are in our body, we are with ourselves for our whole life. Everyone else is temporary.
And it's hard to say these sorts of things and have that belief and not feel selfish, because there's always that selfish connotation that comes with it. There's that narrative of like, oh, he's always thinking about himself.
Yeah.
He's being selfish. He's got other people in his life. It's just like Jimmy Carr talks about it when like the oxygen comes down from the plane. The first thing you do is put it on yourself.
Yeah. Oh yeah, put on yourself.
Put on yourself, and then you put onto someone else.
Yeah, I actually saw that recently.
And you can't, and that's the same thing, man. Like you can't help someone else if you can't help yourself.
Yeah, that's so true. And you don't. I feel like as you're at my age, and it's not an excuse at the end of the day, but you learn a lot of it. You don't understand that until you are older, and you actually have to start putting yourself first, because if you go through these experiences of putting other people first and how it makes you feel, because sometimes, and I'm guilty of it, you end up saying, oh, I'm just trying to help everyone. I'm trying to make people feel good, but sometimes you're trying to make other people feel good because you're filling this void that you don't have for yourself. You're giving love to other people because you can't love yourself.
Yeah.
And we seek, like, you're almost seeking the love from other people by giving it to them, if you know what I mean.
You're looking for the love that you wish you had.
Yeah, so you give it.
You give it,
in a sense, to try and get it.
Hopefully you get it back.
And that's my personal experience in a sense.
Yeah.
But like, and you seek what you don't have in yourself from other people. And I feel like if you can find it within yourself, it makes those relationships, whether it's friends or family or a partner, it makes them 10 times better.
Do you think you fully heal from something like this, something that you've gone through, or you just learn to live with it?
You learn to live with it.
Yeah.
I truly believe that you, like, especially, I mean, I feel like the emotions toward it definitely change. Like, so if like me speaking about it, if I spoke about this, like when I first spoke about it, I was super emotional. Like when I first spoke to the camera about it, I was very, very, like a lot of it was actually cut out. Like I started bawling my eyes out and everything like that. A lot of it was cut out, and it was really hard for me to talk about it. Like it was really hard for me to get it out. And every time I've spoken about it, it gets that little bit easier, a little bit lighter. And I feel like the more you talk about these sorts of things, and this is where the power of speaking comes in and getting it out of your system is so powerful. But yeah, I think being as a 21-year-old, well, especially since I've gone through these things, it gets hard to. When I'm sharing it, it's getting harder. Sorry, it doesn't get harder. It gets easier, so I end up channeling the emotion a little bit better. And if I'm honest, sorry, bro. I'm feeling a bit of anxiety right now. Really random.
That's all right. Do we want a drink?
Yeah, I reckon.
Get a drink.
Yeah. Sorry, mate.
That's all right.
So random. I've been having a bit of that lately, to be honest with you.
Yeah?
Yeah. We can probably touch on it a little bit, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously. What was that question you asked? Just question?
Oh, yeah. Do you fully heal from it, or you just learn to live with it?
Yeah, I feel like you learn to live with it, with that sort of thing. You definitely, as I think where I was getting at was, you learn to cope with things like anxiety, because they never disappear fully. You're always going to experience it one way or another, but I feel like you do heal from experiences, but you don't heal from the emotions that are attached to those experiences, because they're always going to be coming up in our lives. You're always going to feel sad. You're always going to feel anxious. And for me, anxiety is a big one now. And like we just experienced just then. And it's like, okay, how can I cope with it best? And once you learn to, instead of having this focus of trying to fix it, instead you like to be able to have the focus on learning to live with it and learning to cope with it is so much more powerful because it takes the pressure off of trying to fix it.
100%.
Because when there's that pressure of it's got to be fixed, you're just digging yourself into a deeper hole, and it just makes it 10 times harder to get out of.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing I learned was I've been probably getting anxiety probably since I was I think I brought it up to my dad when I was maybe 15 or 16, and I used to ignore it. I used to block it out. I used to pretend like it doesn't exist. I used to run away from it. I used to get angry at it. Like, why is it happening at the most random times? And one of the most powerful things that I learned was instead of trying to not let it in, I just let it in, and I just fully accept it, and I acknowledge that. Yeah, I'm feeling it. Like what you just said then. Just fully acknowledge it. Yeah, I'm going through it. Give me a moment.
Yeah,
and it'll pass.
Yeah.
Well, I get a fair bit of social anxiety, so if I'm going out with a large group of people, before we get out there, I wish that the event got cancelled. Like, I wish that I didn't have to go. Yeah. But in my head, I'm like, it's all right, Elliot. As soon as you get there, it's going to be sweet. But on the car ride there, or even entering, I'm like, fuck, what am I going to talk about? What am I talking about? Yeah. Holy shit, who am I going to see? This is going to be embarrassing.
Yeah.
And then I talk to one person, before you know it, I'm feeling good. Yeah. So it's that understanding that it's going to be there.
Yeah.
But how you manage it, how you control it, speaks volumes for how it's going to...
And I feel like, sorry to interrupt, I feel like the only way you learn is through experience. It's such a common saying. Yeah. But you for people who are struggling with this sort of thing, you seek the fix. The fix, yeah. We're always trying to seek the thing that's going to make it disappear. If you can eliminate out of your mind and learn to just let it in and feel it, you got to feel. You absolutely got to feel things and feel your emotions. And as soon as you can accept that they are always going to be showing up in your life, doesn't mean they're going to be there 24/7. And right now it might be a little bit more than it was yesterday or a little bit more than it will be tomorrow. But how can you just know that it's going to pass? It's not like this forever. No. And how can you know that you going through this is teaching you a lesson right now? How cool is that? And so many people can't recognize that. I've actually talked about it previously before is that my ability to have good conversations with people was a coping mechanism of my social anxiety. So what I found was that because I was getting so socially anxious, I would just go up and talk to people. And by talking to people, that would get me out of my own head and concentrate on what they're saying. And I would ask questions. And then this was me as a young kid. So I think it developed a ability to have conversations with people. And it was a coping mechanism for my social anxiety. Yeah. So a lot of people are like, well, you're good at having conversations. I was like, actually, it bred from me being so socially anxious that the only thing to get off my head was to have a conversation with someone. And then before you know it, I'm feeling good. Yeah. So it's finding your sort of own coping mechanisms and understanding that the potency of the anxiety or what you're going through, the more you work on it and the more you accept it, it does get less. Yeah. You know, I still get it. Yeah. 100%. I still get it now. 34, I still get it. Yep. But I acknowledge it, and the potency of it's not as bad as it used to be. Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's like you talk about death. Yeah. It's so much harder until you accept them and they're gone. Yeah. If you just it's just a weight off your shoulders. Yeah. But yeah, once you can, I think that's that power of acceptance in, like we spoke about before, in just knowing that unfortunately, it's always going to be there. Well, how about we say fortunately, it's always going to be there. Yeah. Because you get to learn such a powerful lesson every time it comes up. And to change your mindset toward adversity instantly puts you a step closer, to where you want to be as a person. You talked about making that video that you put on your socials and how hard that was. Yep. And at what point did you decide to go public with your story and why? I was sick of faking, social media. Like, you'd put on this happy face all the time and all that sort of stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, I still struggle with lots of things. Like, especially anxiety is a big thing for me right now. But I love it. It helped me heal. I mean, at the end of the day, I was doing it because I was like, this is the road I want to go down on. I experienced such a traumatic thing in my life where I thought my life wasn't worth living, and I got to that point where I felt like no one wanted me here anymore. I was like, I know there is so many people out there who were in my boat who still don't have the confidence or the ability to speak up. and they will get to the point of thinking their life's not worth living, and I don't want anyone else to have to experience that because I know how lonely it felt. And then so one day I was just like I'm helping people already. Why don't I help them in another way as well by sharing my story? And the response I got was crazy. So to see that impact that it made on people through sharing my story sort of validates the reason why I did it, and that was to show other people that you're not alone. Everyone experiences this thing, even people who seem like they're the happiest person on the planet. Yeah. Because the amount of people, the messages I got saying would have never picked you to be that, go through something like that, purely because of the person I am now and how I show myself in public. And it did exactly what I wanted. And as much as it's difficult, it's like it was so rewarding, and not for the I didn't even really get many sympathy messages. It was more so, thank you, like thank you for this has helped me. This has helped me feel okay for what I'm going through, and it's some people the motivation to want to get better, but I think the biggest thing was making it okay to speak out about your problems and your issues that you have.
What has it taught you about being vulnerable?
That it makes you feel so much lighter. And as I said to you before, every time I've spoken about it, I'm less and less emotional in a sense. It still hits me. Like most of the time when I talk about it, I'm always getting chills. Yeah. Like there's certain parts of that story where I do really, like I think the biggest thing that hits me is how it affected the people I love. And every time I talk about that, I get pretty upset. But
if it makes you feel any better, I still have that now, but I use it as motivation. So I used to feel so guilty that my mum and dad moved over from New Zealand with fuck all money, raised 3 boys on minimum wage, and we had the best childhood ever, right? And that's how I was going to repay mum and dad. You know, that was the pain and suffering that I could have caused. Well, I caused already, but imagine the pain and suffering of burying their son, right? And I talk about it. It's still the most uncomfortable thing, my story, to talk about. But every time I talk about it, a little piece of shame comes off, a little piece of guilt comes off, a little piece of embarrassment comes off, and it's getting in lighter and lighter. But I used to go through this thing where I'll just be sitting watching telly or in the car driving, and then I'll just think, fuck, how could I just do that to mum and dad?
Yeah.
You know? And now I think, all right, what can I do in my life? What person can I be to make them the proudest, you know? And that goes back to being the best version of yourself. Yeah. What can I, Dad's like, mate, you can do anything you want to do. We'll always be proud of you. We just want you to be happy. All right. And I think about that. I go, all right, well, how can I be the best version? How can I chase my dreams? How can I have a purpose? How can I have my own version of success? And they can tell, like every time they come over, they could always tell, like if Elliot's if he's going well, or if he's sort of in a bit of a rut.
Yeah.
And Dad says to me now, like he's like, I'm so proud of what you're doing.
Yeah.
You don't need to be making millions of dollars. You don't need to have a big fancy house. You don't need to be doing all these things. Dad's like, mate, you got that podcast and you're serving a purpose and you're helping people and you've been a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
Parent, done his job.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where it goes back to looking at it as a blessing and like look at what it's created for you, for yourself in like the adversity that you've gone through, and now you get to share that and help other people work out of a similar, not always going to be similar, but similar in terms of difficult times of their lives to work through that. And I think that's the reason a lot of people do it, and it's the exact same reason I shared my story, because you want to have that impact on other people's lives. But and I love that you to give back and show your dad what you're doing and like what the challenge has done for you and the impact that it's not only have on your own life, but what it has on so many others. Like when I saw and listened to your podcast, it's like why couldn't I have heard this sort of stuff back when I was going through this shit? And I'm like, this is why we do this stuff. This is why we share it, because it helps people who are going through it feel that little bit more okay with what they're feeling, because a lot of people don't feel like it's made to be not okay to feel upset. So, or to be going through a mental health challenge. So these sorts of things are so powerful, and they don't only help that person, they help us.
Yeah,
like,
big time.
For me sharing my story, and as you said, it releases that little bit of shame, but that coming up is a good thing. It's leaving your body. It's going. You're and it doesn't mean it's never going to be fully gone, but it's going to get lighter and lighter and lighter.
100%.
And who wouldn't want that at the end of the day?
How do you view yourself now compared to how you viewed yourself when you were 15, 16?
I'm going to be really honest here and say I'm definitely way more mature, way more in touch with myself. I know what I'm feeling. But definitely doesn't mean I don't experience stuff. And a lot of people probably think, I haven't actually shared this yet, but a lot of people actually probably think that I'm all sorted. I've shared my story. I've gone through it. So I'm fine. Harry's fine. He's good. He's happy. Like, people see me laughing, making jokes at work, and like, out of all the trainers at work, I like to have a lot of energy and stuff like that, and crack jokes, all that sort of thing. And now, obviously, as I said, I've learnt a lot of stuff and how to handle stuff, but I definitely am still struggling. And I own that, because it's okay for me to be struggling, because I'm 21 years old running my own business with these aspirations to be super successful. And that in itself, I have an unhealthy relationship with that I'm currently working on. But on the positive side, I can live with it now. I don't feel like it's unbearable. If this was me at 16, obviously different context, but if this was me at 16 again, and I hadn't learned the things that I learned when I was 16, I'd be doing what I was doing at 16 right now, because I'd feel like I'm not on the right path. I'd feel like I'm not doing enough. I think a big thing for me right now is I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety around a lot of things, like what you just I don't know what we'll do with that, but you just witnessed it out of nowhere. Like, I was looking at my watch because my heart rate starts to go up.
I thought you had to get out of here.
No, I was like, holy shit! Like, my heart rate's at 115, and I'm just sitting down having a chat. And out of nowhere, that happened. And for another example for you, I was driving the other day and I started hyperventilating out of nowhere. And I pulled over and rang Courtney, my partner, and said, and she's really good at calming me in those situations. And but it's really interesting how I still experience those things, but I now know how to live with them. As we spoke about before, they never fully disappear. Sometimes it gets a bit lighter, but I still struggle with. It's probably the same intensity. It just doesn't feel as much because of what I've learnt. And to experience all that sort of stuff at a young age, I'm so grateful for, because I'd hate to be going through it right now, running my own business, because I'm sure it would really make shit hit the fan if that was happening. But again, I look at all this stuff as things that are happening for me so that I can be the most in tune with myself as I get older, have a family, and have more responsibility. So I'm really grateful to be experiencing this stuff right now.
Well, you're learning a valuable lesson that I learnt sort of far too old, was that I honestly thought being happy was not having any problems. I honestly was like going through life thinking me being happy equals not having any problems in my life. And how ignorant was I to believe that you can go through life and not have any problems. So when problems arose, which I always do in life, I always get so angry because I'm thinking, why can't I just be happy? Why can't I have a happy life? Why are there's always problems going on? And that sent me down a very bad sort of headspace of thinking, why me? Victimhood. Why is this happening to me? Why is there always problems? Now my mentality is thinking that true happiness is not having any problems. It's learning to deal with them. And then that's even evolved into not even thinking about problems, but opportunities to grow. So when there's sort of things happen in my life, when there's things don't go the way that I planned them to go, I go, oh, well, what's this teaching me now? Maybe this is leading me down a different path. Why I probably shouldn't resist it as much as I did. I used to resist everything, and why is life happening the way it is, instead of just going, all right, well, this is obviously, I'm going to be better for it. Let's just go down this road and see where it ends up.
100%.
You know?
And that's what we spoke about before, and how you can look at it as a lesson. And also the part of it being experiencing happiness. You can't experience happiness without experiencing pain. And when you look at it like, okay, I'm experiencing this, but that means the happiness I feel is going to feel even better. And when you can, it's not like you're holding on to hope, but it's more so accepting that it's inevitable to go through pain and adversity to experience true happiness. And I feel like when people can come to terms with that, it makes life a lot easier. And it's like what we spoke about before, acceptance.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your biggest misconception about mental health you see today, especially with young men?
What I said before about just because we're young, you haven't experienced life. This isn't real. Like, you're not depressed. And it grinds my gears, boils my blood that when people say that. I still hear it.
You do,
I still hear it, and you hear about it, at footy clubs and stuff like that. They're super hard on you, even though it's just junior footy and stuff like that. But
wait till you have a mortgage, wait till you have a full time, wait till you have this. That's real pain. You're just like, all right, well,
exactly. But like, how am I supposed to learn to handle that if I can't even handle these small things? And it's like, okay, as you said, everyone's experiencing life for the first time, and at 15, 16, or even younger. You are even more raw and have that's the actual issue. They say you don't have life experience. That's the issue. That's why you experience this pain, and that's where people forget. Okay, this 16-year-old hasn't experienced this before, so it's gonna feel heavy.
It's gonna feel like the real fucking thing.
It's gonna fucking hurt, and it's gonna feel like the world's ending.
Yeah.
And just because they're young, it doesn't matter. They haven't experienced the pain that I've felt, or the magnitude of my problems. And that's what people who are older, who are probably a little bit, haven't even done the work themselves, to be honest. And they neglect these young men and how they're feeling. And that's what ends up bringing in them not speaking, because they're made to feel that they're not supposed to. You're not supposed to feel like this because you're 16, you're young, you haven't experienced anything.
It's interesting because I'll forward you on to Gabor Mate, because he says a lot about this stuff. He talks about... as parents, a lot of the time when there's sort of, they try to protect you from certain things in life. They're trying to hide sort of negativity or, dramas, or trying to protect you from the dangers of life sometimes. And they try to hide things from you. And he says, don't do that. Don't lie to your kids, because they'll see it. You may not think that they do, but they can see the truth when you go home. And he said the best thing you do is don't hide that from your kids. Teach them ways to cope with reality instead of hiding from reality. I feel like I wish, and I love my parents, but I sometimes I really wish that. And again, I wouldn't be where I am right now if I didn't experience these things. But like we spoke about before, and what we can do, how we can try and make our kids have the most peaceful life we can, is to teach them the real stuff from a young age, and give it to them real but gently. I think when we're talking in terms of young. Yeah, because like, if you don't teach them, the correct tools and ways and strategies to cope with reality, we'll find our own ways to cope with reality.
Just takes a bit longer.
It takes a bit longer, but also, I mean, from my point of view and my sort of background and the friends that I've been around, and sort of how my life sort of eventuated, I turned to drugs and alcohol. That's a very easy way to cope with reality. Is to go and find numbness.
For me personally, way less intense. I used women.
Oh yeah.
Like the validation that they gave me, and it's like, obviously it's not as extreme as drug and alcohol sort of stuff, but that's what happens.
The same symptom.
We're looking to numb it somewhere else, and then that makes it, you dig yourself a deeper hole there, don't you?
Yeah, you do. For sure. Couple more questions, mate.
Sounds good.
What does a mentally healthy life look like for you?
To be able to cope with emotions, and like mate, I'm leaps and bounds from where I was. I used to put my life on pause. Like for example, I'd stop going to school because I couldn't handle my emotions. So to be able, especially now, it being more important, owning my own business, to be able to learn to cope, it just brings me so much peace. Like, you go through this stuff, and when you accept that it's going to happen, you learn more from it because you're not forcing yourself to not feel it. And now that I allow myself to feel these things, I learn more from them because I'm listening. And and it's not that you have to look into it a lot, but for me personally, I love to, because I like to learn why I'm doing it and why certain things have happened, just so I can be the best, like we spoke about, the best version of myself that I can be, so that I can bring so much value and happiness to other people's lives, because it's not that we rely on that, but to be able to do that's pretty cool if you can be happy yourself and experience, still go through all the things you need to, but then also bring a lot of joy to other people purely just because you know how to handle your own shit.
It's amazing to see how in tune you are with your own self, and it's just going to get, I guess, stronger. It's going to get real stronger. If you go back and speak to that Harry on that day that he almost didn't make it, with everything you know now, what would you say to him?
I feel like I'd just give him a hug. Back then I felt, because I was acting and putting on this brave face, no one checked in on me. And that's the danger of not being able to speak out. And that's why we encourage people to speak out. But, mate, I think I just needed a fucking hug, to be honest. And to know that I'm here, bro. I gotcha. Like to be able to say now, if I'm going back, I'm like, look at where you're going to be. Look at the life you're getting to live. Now, my dad actually brought this up with me two nights ago. We had a really good conversation, and I've been having lots of deep conversations with my parents lately. But he actually said, mate, take a step back and look at all the positives in your life right now and compare it to the negatives. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, I just bought a new car. I got a beautiful sausage dog, don't pay rent, run my own business, and I've got all these people coming to me for help. And it's creating me this life that is feeling a life of fulfillment. So if I could go back and say, you going through this is going to make you just help you live this life full of fulfillment, but also teach you lessons that you can teach other people. At 16, you probably don't. Obviously, in that,
he would have told you to shut the
fuck up, bro. Yeah, but I mean, that's getting really literal there. But yeah, mate, I think to know that I wasn't alone. Yeah, like that's why I said to you before, if I had a podcast like this that I could have listened to when I was 16, or even been made aware of it, and even just hearing other people's stories, I didn't hear anything about anyone else struggling back then. I was like, it's just me. All these people are so happy. And you look around, probably half of those people were probably going through something that same day.
100%.
And it's so upsetting that it is like that. But that's the harsh reality. But now, as mental health's a massive thing right now in the world. And I'm so glad, because it's creating so much awareness around it. Because, yeah, it's fucked up how many people feel like their lives aren't worth living.
Yeah, it's sad that there's so many people in the same boat.
Yeah.
But I think it's even more sad that no one talks about it.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think...
And that's where I say, like, like you're probably the same. You wish you had it back then. And again, you find your own way. But, like, there's no harm in trying to help people before they hit rock bottom. And that's like this mission that I reckon I'll be on for my whole life. Like, as I said to you, I'm just at the start. I'm just opening the lid now, and to really dive into this sort of stuff, and to be able to have that opportunity to really help people. And I'm sure you feel this as well, to be able to speak about mental health and share other people's stories, to make sure that people hear that it's okay to experience what you're experiencing, big or small. It just takes a big weight off our shoulders, because I guarantee you, I just know that if there was more talk about it when I was going through it, or at least I heard it, probably, well, I mean, you never know, but I feel like I don't see how it would have been as bad as it was, because you get made to feel okay. Because I feel like loneliness is where shit gets real. It's
that isolation and loneliness, and it's also like trying to stigmatize it. And when you go to the doctor and you're sick and you get medication, and you go to ambulance because you break your leg, or you do something at training, you tore a hammy. You tell people that.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But if you go to the doctors and say, hey, mate, I'm struggling with my mental health, and your mates are going, what? You know, and I even talk about it with, I've had a couple of rugby players come on the podcast and we talk about it, like professional sports people, how you see it on the news and they'll say, oh, he's not playing because, and they'll try to like hide the mental health issue. Or
say
like
personal reasons.
Personal reasons.
Yeah.
I would love for a club, and obviously it's a very sensitive topic depending on what they're going through, but I would love for a player to just come out and say, my mental health is really shit right now. I'm having 2 weeks off, but I'll be back.
Yeah.
I've torn my hammy, strained my hammy, do some work, and I'll be back playing next week.
I think the sad thing about that, though, is if they did that, some of them would cop shit.
And that's the thing. You're a weak man.
Yeah.
You know, imagine all the shit they would cop for it.
Yeah.
And
like your life's so good, you're ungrateful.
Yeah, you're on all this money.
Yeah. And I think this is where you start to go in circles, hey, and you're like, why can't the world just be a fucking peaceful place? And I think as soon as you try and control that, you're digging yourself into a hole there, because it's impossible to change the whole world. But I guess the power of this sort of thing is you're doing you do what you can to help the people around you, and this is way better than what it was years ago. So, but that's such a good point to make in terms of let's tell the truth here. Like, obviously, it's up to a player in a sense, but if you can
just be outspoken about it and be like, I'm comfortable with who I am.
Yeah, imagine you're a young kid and you see your idol speak out about their mental health and you're going through something. You're like, oh, shit.
This is normal.
Yeah, yeah. And then that just, I think, just takes a massive load off people's lives.
Bit of a tricky question for you.
Hit me.
What's a question you hoped I wouldn't ask you today?
The question that I always get stumped on is that one about what would you tell yourself? I wouldn't say I wouldn't want you to ask me, but I get stumped on it.
What would you tell Harry back then? Yeah. Yeah.
And I think me talking about me now is something I haven't done yet. So that's that, and I feel good talking about it. Like I feel you feel lighter, but I always seem to get stumped on what would I tell myself.
Because it's hard to pinpoint something you would say that would make a difference at that time.
Because you think about how closed off I was.
I don't think there's anything that I could have told myself back then.
And that's why I said just a hug.
Yeah.
Like, you think about it, hey, and it's like...
you think, maybe I'd love just to know that everything would have been okay. Yeah. Like, everything is going to be okay.
Yeah, and I think you talk about keeping it real as well. And it starts with that. Because if you're not keeping it real, that's when it gets too hard to be real. Because sometimes those people are just holding on to all this... People who are going through those things they're going to be so closed off to everything. And if you're trying to keep it real with them, you're probably going to make it worse. Because they're going to be like, oh my God, I'm so far behind. And it's going to feel so much more intense about it all. So I feel like that's where it comes into keeping it real early and being able to teach the lessons at an earlier point so we don't hit the bottom.
I know you've got still some intense emotions and feelings from that day. But do you feel proud of yourself?
Fucking oath.
You do?
Yeah.
Good.
Because I've purely let go of the fact that I was young, and for a long time I was like, I can't share that. I was just young and sad, going through learning about my life. And for me to overcome that and then see the impact that it's made and the amount of other people that are currently struggling that I actually personally know because their parents have reached out to me, and it's like, this is a real thing. And these things, if aren't attended, when these kids get older, if they don't do it now, they'll do it when they're older. And it's like, I've played my part, and I am playing my part, and that's me being proud of me speaking about it. But in terms of me being proud of overcoming it, how can you not? And the lessons I've learnt, and just created a better relationship with the people around me and myself, life's so much more peaceful. Obviously, we're always craving a peaceful life, but for it to be in terms of being able to just live with things that come up and cope with intense emotions, I can't not be proud of that because of how I was thinking in those moments, like we just said. Like if someone was to try and talk to us and tell us something, like fuck up, nothing can help me right now.
And that's that thing about when people are listening to this, and I often mention peace as well. I think a lot of people associate peace with an easy life or a simple life or a happy life. But peace doesn't mean any of that.
Peace in the chaos.
Peace in the chaos. You know, when things are happening, when there's bad things happening, you know, you still find peace in when the shit's hit the fan.
That's true peace.
Yeah.
Because if you're seeking peace, where it's just like, you know, you're meditating and you just hear all this, like you're just floating on a leaf or something like that, or floating in the clouds. That's not peace. Peace in life is when you can find peace in the chaos, and because it's inevitable that we go through these things, and if you're trying to force yourself not to, it makes it harder.
You mentioned that before, how you had, you know, people that you know, their parents are sort of reaching out to you. Finally, what's your message to a person listening right now who feels like they can't go on?
How can you, it's like, look at this stuff as a lesson. Don't look at this as something that's out to get you and out to make your life horrible, like the universe is trying to ruin you. This is happening to teach you something. And the difficult thing is, at a young age, you're not going to realise it until, like for me, I've only realised it now at 21, even though I've healing from it and it hasn't bothered me in a few years. It's hard for someone at that young age to hear that you'll understand. One day you will. And I think it's about the want to live the best life possible. And if these young kids who are experiencing these emotions, if they can sort of learn, and if we can drill into them that this is happening for you, you're going to learn something so powerful from this. Imagine how good you can feel when you come out the other side of this. Imagine the strength that it will take. How proud of yourself would you feel if you, like the question you asked me before, like how proud would you be of yourself if you work through this emotion that you're feeling? Because for them, it's probably feels like the world's ending. And I feel like they're going to be closed off, but to be able to, I think it's hard to say it in one at once. You've sort of got to drill a lot of things into them over time. It is
a thing over time where I realise it's celebrating those small wins, because when you're young, you haven't got the reps under your belt to know that you can overcome things.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when we're adults, you know what you can overcome because you've done it. Yeah. But when you're so young,
experiencing it for the first
time, you actually don't know if you can get through it or not. Yeah. And that heightens the feeling of what you're going through.
And that's where it comes into these people who don't understand that, who were telling me personally that you weren't depressed, mate. It's like, I'm experiencing this emotion for the very first time. Feels like I've never felt this before. I don't know what to do. And I think that's where there's the thought of trying to fix someone is where I go to straight away, which is not gonna. It never works. It's like okay, keeping it real, but also keeping it gentle for those types of people those young kids who are experiencing it for the first time, and because there's no fix for it. You fix it through experience. They fix it through experience, or they at least learn to live with it through experience. And I think just the power of assumption, the hurt that assumption can cause is another thing as well. Where if you just assume that some kid's fine because they're rocking up with a smile on their face every day, then they don't have anything going on, because that was me. And
has that allowed you to sort of connect more with your friends and family, knowing that a smile on a face doesn't actually mean a smile on the inside?
100%. I'm annoying about it.
Are you?
Yeah. I just feel like, I don't know why, but I feel like I have good, I can sort of read the room and sense if someone's off, even if they're sort of showing it, that they are, like they're trying to act okay. But yeah, it's definitely improved that aspect of even understanding not only my family, but my clients, like conversations stem from our sessions just purely because they're not being themselves in a way.
Yeah.
So it's taught me to pick up on other people's little things that they do that indicate that they're off.
Yeah, you see the signs.
Yeah. So I think, but for the young kids, 16, 17, it's so hard.
Yeah,
because as you said, you're experiencing it for the first time, but they've got to, and to have the right people telling them the right things, telling them you're gonna come out of this. You're experiencing this for a good reason. This isn't because you've done something wrong. You're experiencing this because you're strong enough to experiencing it, and it's happening for you, so that you can experience it again in the future, but overcome it, and then teach other people how to overcome it.
That's it. You're making them feel seen and heard too, which is massively important.
For sure.
Harry, mate, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate you being so open and honest and vulnerable, mate. It's amazing to see what you've gone through, the person that you are today, the changes you're trying to make, not only within yourself, but within your community, with all your clients. You're doing wonderful things, and it's just going to get better in the future, mate.
Yeah, I'm so excited, mate. I appreciate you coming on and letting me get this experience. It's cool to be able to talk about this sort of thing. So
appreciate it, mate.
It's been awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks, brother.
All good.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Mind Your Head. If you'd like to support the show, be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really supports the show and helps others discover us. Don't forget to join us on Instagram and TikTok at mindyourhead.podcast.